transmission is being made possible by the presence of the unseen ones, the spiritual counselors who oversee the development of intelligent life both within your world and throughout the greater community of worlds. We are not communicating through any mechanical device, but through a spiritual channel that is free from interference. Though we live in the physical, as do you, we are given the privilege to communicate in this way in order to deliver the information that we must share with you. We represent a small group who is observing the events of your world. We come from the greater community. We do not interfere in human affairs. We have no establishment here. We have been sent for a very specific purpose, to witness the events that are occurring in your world and, given the opportunity to do so, to communicate to you what we see and what we know. For you live on the surface of your world and cannot see the affairs that surround it. Nor can you see clearly the visitation that is occurring in your world at this time or what it portends for your future. We would like to give testimony to this. We are doing so at the request of the unseen ones, for we have been sent for this purpose. The information that we are about to impart to you may seem very challenging and startling. It is perhaps unexpected by many who will hear this message. We understand this difficulty, for we have had to face this within our own cultures. As you hear the information, it may be difficult to accept at first, but it is vital for all who would seek to make a contribution in the world. For many years we have been observing the affairs of your world. We seek no relations with humanity. We are not here on a diplomatic mission. We have been sent by the unseen ones to live in the proximity of your world in order to observe the events we are about to describe. Our names are not important. They would be meaningless to you. And we shall not impart them for our own safety, for we must remain hidden in order that we may serve. To begin, it is necessary for people everywhere to understand that humanity is emerging into a greater community of intelligent life. Your world is being visited by several alien races and by several different organizations of races. This has been actively going on for some time. There have been visitations throughout human history, but nothing of this magnitude. The advent of nuclear weapons and the destruction of your natural world have brought these forces to your shores. There are many people in the world today, we understand, who are beginning to realize that this is occurring. And we understand as well that there are many interpretations of this visitation, what it could mean and what it could offer. And many of the people who are aware of these things are very hopeful and anticipate a great benefit for humanity. We understand. It is natural to expect this. It is natural to be hopeful. The visitation in your world now is very extensive, so much so that people in all parts of the world are witnessing it and are experiencing its effects directly. What has brought these visitors from the greater community, these different organizations of beings, is not to promote the advancement of humanity or the spiritual education of humanity. What has brought these forces to your shores in such numbers with such intention are the resources of your world. This we understand may be difficult to accept at first because you cannot yet appreciate how beautiful your world is, how much it possesses and what a rare jewel it is in a greater community of barren worlds and empty space. Worlds such as yours are rare indeed. Most places in the greater community that are inhabited now have been colonized, and technology has made this possible. But worlds such as yours where life has evolved naturally, without the aid of technology, are far more rare than you might realize. Others take great notice of this, of course, for the biological resources of your world have been used by several races for millennia. It is considered a storehouse for some. And yet the development of human culture and dangerous weapons and the deterioration of these resources have caused the alien intervention. Perhaps you might wonder why diplomatic efforts are not established to contact the leaders of humanity. This is reasonable to ask, but the difficulty here is that there is no one to represent humanity, for your people are divided, and your nations oppose one another. It is also assumed by these visitors that we speak of that you are warlike and aggressive and that you would bring harm and hostility to the universe around you despite your good qualities. Therefore, in our discourse we want to give you an idea of what is occurring, what it will mean for humanity and how it is related to your spiritual development, your social development and your future in the world and in the greater community of worlds itself. People are unaware of the presence of alien forces, unaware of the presence of resource explorers, of those who would seek an alliance with humanity for their own benefit. Perhaps we should begin here by giving you an idea of what life is like beyond your shores, for you have not journeyed afar and cannot account for these things yourself. You live in a part of the galaxy that is quite inhabited. Not all parts of the galaxy are inhabited. There are great unexplored regions. There are many hidden races. Trade and commerce between worlds are only carried on in certain areas. The environment that you will emerge into is a very competitive one. The need for resources is experienced everywhere, and many technological societies have outstripped their world's natural resources and must trade, barter and travel to gain what they need. It is a very complicated situation. Many alliances are formed and conflicts do occur. Perhaps at this point it is necessary to realize that the greater community into which you are emerging is a difficult environment and a challenging one, and yet it brings great opportunity and great possibilities for humanity. However, for these possibilities and these advantages to be realized, humanity must prepare and come to learn what life in the universe is like. And it must come to understand what spirituality means within a greater community of intelligent life. We understand from our own history that this is the greatest threshold that any world will ever face. It is not something, however, that you can plan for yourself. It is not something that you can design for your own future. For the very forces that would bring the greater community reality here are already present in the world. Circumstances have brought them here. They are here. Perhaps this gives you an idea of what life is like beyond your borders. We do not want to create an idea that is fearful, but it is necessary for your own well-being and for your future that you have an honest appraisal and can come to see these things clearly. The need to prepare for life in the greater community, we feel, is the greatest need there is in your world today. And yet, from our observation, people are preoccupied with their own affairs and their own problems in their daily lives, unaware of the greater forces that will change their destiny and affect their future. The forces and groups who are here today represent several different alliances. These different alliances are not united with each other in their efforts. Each alliance represents several different racial groups who are collaborating for the purpose of gaining access to your world's resources and maintaining this access. These different alliances are, in essence, competing with each other though they are not at war with one another. They see your world as a great prize, something they want to have for themselves. This creates a very great challenge for your people, for the forces who are visiting you not only have advanced technology, but also strong social cohesion and are able to influence thought in the mental environment. You see, in the greater community, technology is easily acquired, and so the great advantage between competing societies is the ability to influence thought. This has taken on very sophisticated demonstrations. It represents a set of skills that humanity is only beginning to discover. As a result, your visitors do not come armed with great weapons or with armies or with armadas of vessels. They come in relatively small groups, but they possess considerable skill in influencing people. This represents a more sophisticated and mature use of power in the greater community. It is this ability that humanity will have to cultivate in the future if it is to contend with other races successfully. The visitors are here to gain humanity's allegiance. They do not want to destroy human establishments or the human presence. Instead, they wish to use these for their own benefit. Their intention is employment, not destruction. They feel that they are in the right because they believe that they are saving the world. Some even believe that they are saving humanity from itself. But this perspective does not serve your greater interests, nor does it foster wisdom or self-determination within the human family. Yet because there are forces of good within the greater community of worlds, you have allies. We represent the voice of your allies, the allies of humanity. We are not here to use your resources or to take from you what you possess. We do not seek to establish humanity as a client state or as a colony for our own uses. Instead, we wish to foster strength and wisdom within humanity because we support this throughout the greater community. Our role, then, is quite essential, and our information is very needed because at this time even people who are aware of the presence of the visitors are not yet aware of their intentions. People do not understand the visitors' methods, and they do not comprehend the visitors' ethics or morality. People think the visitors are either angels or monsters. But in reality, they are very much like you in their needs. If you could see the world through their eyes, you would understand their consciousness and their motivation. But to do that, you would have to venture beyond your own. The visitors are engaged in 4 fundamental activities in order to gain influence within your world. Each of these activities is unique, but they are all coordinated together. They are being carried out because humanity has been studied for a long time. Human thought, human behavior, human physiology and human religion have been studied for some time. These are well understood by your visitors and will be used for their own purposes. The first area of activity of the visitors is to influence individuals in positions of power and authority. Because the visitors do not want to destroy anything in the world or harm the world's resources, they seek to gain influence over those whom they perceive to be in positions of power, within government and religion primarily. They seek contact, but only with certain individuals. They have the power to make this contact, and they have the power of persuasion. Not all of those they contact will be persuaded, but many will be. The promise of greater power, greater technology and world domination will intrigue and incite many individuals. And it is these individuals with whom the visitors will seek to establish a liaison. There are very few people in the governments of the world who are being so affected, but their numbers are growing. The visitors understand the hierarchy of power because they themselves live by it, following their own chain of command, you might say. They are highly organized and very focused in their endeavors, and the idea of having cultures full of free-thinking individuals is largely foreign to them. They do not comprehend or understand individual freedom. They are like many technologically advanced societies in the greater community who function both within their respective worlds and in their establishments across vast reaches of space, utilizing a very well-established and rigid form of government and organization. They believe that humanity is chaotic and unruly, and they feel they are bringing order to a situation that they cannot themselves comprehend. Individual freedom is unknown to them, and they do not see its value. As a result, what they seek to establish in the world will not honor this freedom. Therefore, their first area of endeavor is to establish a liaison with individuals in positions of power and influence in order to gain their allegiance and to persuade them of the beneficial aspects of relationship and shared purpose. The second avenue of activity, which is perhaps the most difficult to consider from your perspective, is the manipulation of religious values and impulses. The visitors understand that humanity's greatest abilities also represent its greatest vulnerability. People's longing for individual redemption represents one of the greatest assets the human family has to offer, even to the greater community. But it is also your weakness. And it is these impulses and these values that will be used. Several groups of the visitors wish to establish themselves as spiritual agents because they know how to speak in the mental environment. They can communicate to people directly, and unfortunately, because there are very few people in the world who can discern the difference between a spiritual voice and the visitor's voice, the situation becomes very difficult. Therefore, the second area of activity is to gain people's allegiance through their religious and spiritual motivations. Actually, this can be done quite easily because humanity is not yet strong or developed in the mental environment. It is difficult for people to discern where these impulses are coming from. Many people want to give themselves to anything they think has a greater voice and a greater power. Your visitors can project images of your saints, of your teachers, of angels, images that are held dear and sacred within your world. They have cultivated this ability through many, many centuries of attempting to influence each other and by learning the ways of persuasion that are practiced in many places in the greater community. They consider you primitive, and so they feel they can exert this influence and use these methods upon you. Here there is an attempt to contact those individuals who are considered sensitive, receptive and naturally given to be cooperative. Many people will be selected, but a few will be chosen based upon these particular qualities. Your visitors will seek to gain allegiance with these individuals, to gain their trust and to gain their devotion, telling the recipients that the visitors are here to uplift humanity spiritually, to give humanity new hope, new blessings and new power, indeed promising the things that people want so dearly but have not yet found themselves. Perhaps you may wonder, how can such a thing occur? But we can assure you that it is not difficult once you learn these skills and abilities. The effort here is to pacify and to re-educate people through spiritual persuasion. This pacification program is used differently with different religious groups depending upon their ideals and their temperament. It is always aimed at receptive individuals. Here it is hoped that people will lose their sense of discernment and will become wholly trusting of the greater power that they feel is being given to them by the visitors. Once this allegiance is established, it becomes increasingly difficult for people to discern what they know within themselves from what is being told to them. It is a very subtle but very pervasive form of persuasion and manipulation. We shall speak more on this as we proceed. Let us now mention the third area of activity, which is to establish the visitor's presence in the world and to have people become used to this presence. They want humanity to become acclimated to this very great change that is occurring in your midst, to have you become acclimated to the visitor's physical presence and to their effect on your own mental environment. To serve this purpose, they will create establishments here, though not in view. These establishments will be hidden, but they will be very powerful in casting an influence on human populations that are near them. The visitors will take great care and time to make sure that these establishments are effective and that enough people are in allegiance to them. It is these people who will guard and preserve the visitor's presence. This is exactly what is occurring in your world at this time. It represents a great challenge and unfortunately a great risk. This very same thing that we are describing has happened so many times in so many places in the greater community. And emerging races such as your own are always the most vulnerable. Some emerging races are able to establish their own awareness, ability and cooperation to the extent that they can offset outside influences such as these and establish a presence and a position in the greater community. Yet many races, before they even attain this freedom, fall under the control and influence of foreign powers. We understand that this information may incite considerable fear and perhaps denial or confusion. But as we observe events, we realize that there are very few people who are aware of the situation as it actually exists. Even those people who are becoming aware of the presence of alien forces are not in a position and do not have the vantage point from which they can see the situation clearly. And being ever hopeful and optimistic, they seek to give this great phenomenon as much positive meaning as they can. However, the greater community is a competitive environment, a difficult environment. Those who engage in space travel do not represent the spiritually advanced, for those who are spiritually advanced seek insulation from the greater community. They do not seek commerce. They do not seek to influence other races or to engage in the very complex array of relationships that are established for mutual trade and benefit. Instead, the spiritually advanced seek to remain hidden. This is a very different understanding, perhaps, but a necessary one for you to come to comprehend the great predicament that humanity is facing. Yet this predicament holds great possibilities. We would like to speak about these now. Despite the gravity of the situation that we are describing, we do not feel that these circumstances are a tragedy for humanity. Indeed, if these circumstances can be recognized and understood, and if the preparation for the greater community, which now exists in the world, can be utilized, studied and applied, then people everywhere of good conscience will have the ability to learn greater community knowledge and wisdom. Thus, people everywhere will be able to find the basis for cooperation so that the human family can finally establish a unity that has never been established here before. For it will take the overshadowing of the greater community to unite humanity. And this overshadowing is occurring now. It is your evolution to emerge into a greater community of intelligent life. It will happen whether you are prepared or not. It must occur. Preparation, then, becomes the key. Understanding and clarity, these are the things that are necessary and needed in your world at this time. People everywhere have great spiritual gifts that can enable them to see and to know clearly. These gifts are needed now. They need to be recognized, employed and shared freely. It is not merely up to a great teacher or a great saint in your world to do this. It must be cultivated by many more people now. For the situation brings with it necessity, and if necessity can be embraced, it brings with it great opportunity. However, the requirements to learn about the greater community and to begin to experience greater community spirituality are tremendous. Never before have human beings had to learn such things in such a short period of time. Indeed, such things have rarely been learned ever by anyone in your world before. But now the need has changed. The circumstances are different. Now there are new influences in your midst, influences that you can feel and that you can know. The visitors seek to disable people from having this vision and this knowledge within themselves, for your visitors do not have it within themselves. They do not see its value. They do not understand its reality. In this, humanity as a whole is more advanced than they are. But this is only a potential which must now be cultivated. The alien presence in the world is growing. It is growing every day, every year. Many more people are falling under its persuasion, losing their ability to know, becoming confused and distracted, believing in things that can only weaken them and make them impotent in the face of those who would seek to use them for their own purposes. Humanity is an emerging race. It is vulnerable. It is facing a set of circumstances and influences now which it has never had to face before. You have only evolved to compete with each other. You have never had to compete with other forms of intelligent life. Yet it is this competition that will strengthen you and will call forth your greatest attributes if the situation can be clearly seen and understood. It is the role of the unseen ones to foster this strength. The unseen ones, whom you would rightly call angels, do not only speak to the human heart but to hearts everywhere who are able to listen and who have gained the freedom to listen. We come, then, with a difficult message, but a message of promise and hope. Perhaps it is not the message that people want to hear. It is certainly not the message that the visitors would promote. It is a message that can be shared from person to person, and it will be shared because it is natural to do so. Yet the visitors and those who have come under their persuasion will oppose such an awareness. They do not want to see an independent humanity. That is not their purpose. They do not even believe it is beneficial. Therefore, it is our sincere desire that these ideas be considered without trepidation, but with a serious mind and a deep concern that are well justified here. There are many people in the world today, we understand, who feel that a great change is coming for humanity. The unseen ones have told us these things. Many causes are attributed to this sense of change, and many outcomes are predicted. Yet unless you can begin to comprehend the reality that humanity is emerging into a greater community of intelligent life, you do not yet have the right context for understanding the destiny of humanity or the great change that is occurring in the world. From our perspective, people are born into their time to serve that time. This is a teaching in greater community spirituality, a teaching of which we are students as well. It teaches freedom and the power of shared purpose. It grants authority to the individual and to the individual who can join with others, ideas which are rarely accepted or adopted in the greater community, for the greater community is not the heavenly state. It is a physical reality with the rigors of survival and all that that entails. All beings within this reality must contend with these needs and issues. And in this, your visitors are more like you than you realize. They are not incomprehensible. They would seek to be incomprehensible, but they can be understood. You have the power to do this, but you must see with clear eyes. You must see with a greater vision and know with a greater intelligence, which you have the possibility to cultivate within yourselves. It is necessary for us now to speak more regarding the second area of influence and persuasion because this has great importance, and it is our sincere desire that you will understand these things and consider them for yourself. The religions of the world hold the key to human dedication and human allegiance, more than governments, more than any other institution. This speaks well for humanity because religions such as these are often hard to find in the greater community. Your world is rich in this respect, but your strength is also where you are weak and vulnerable. Many people want to be divinely guided and appointed, to give over the reins of their own lives and to have a greater spiritual power direct them, counsel them and preserve them. This is a genuine desire, but within a greater community context, considerable wisdom must be cultivated in order for this desire to be fulfilled. It is very sad for us to see how people will give their authority away so easily, something they have never even fully had, they will give away willingly to those who are unknown to them. This message is destined to reach people who have a greater spiritual affinity. Therefore, it is necessary that we elaborate on this subject. We advocate a spirituality that is taught in the greater community, not the spirituality that is governed by nations, governments or political alliances, but a natural spirituality, the ability to know, to see and to act. And yet this is not emphasized by your visitors. They seek to have people believe that the visitors are their family, that the visitors are their home, that the visitors are their brothers and sisters, their mothers and fathers. Many people want to believe, and so they believe. People want to give over their personal authority, and so it is given over. People want to see friends and salvation in the visitors, and so this is what they are shown. It will take great sobriety and objectivity in order to see through these deceptions and these difficulties. It will be necessary for people to do this if humanity is to successfully emerge into the greater community and maintain its freedom and its self-determination in an environment of greater influences and greater forces. In this, your world could be overtaken without firing a shot, for violence is considered primitive and crude and is rarely employed in matters such as this. Perhaps you may ask, does this mean that there is an invasion of our world? We must say that the answer to this is, yes, an invasion of the most subtle kind. If you can entertain these thoughts and consider them seriously, you will be able to see these things for yourself. The evidence of this invasion is everywhere. You can see how human ability is offset by the desire for happiness, peace and security, how people's vision and ability to know are hampered by influences even within their own cultures. How much greater these influences will be within a greater community environment. This is the difficult message that we must present. This is the message that must be said, the truth that must be spoken, the truth that is vital and cannot wait. It is so necessary for people now to learn a greater knowledge, a greater wisdom and a greater spirituality so that they may find their true abilities and be able to use them effectively. Your freedom is at stake. The future of your world is at stake. It is because of this that we have been sent here to speak for the allies of humanity. There are those in the universe who are keeping knowledge and wisdom alive and who practice a greater community spirituality. They do not travel all about, casting influence over different worlds. They do not take people against their will. They do not steal your animals and your plants. They do not cast influence over your governments. They do not seek to breed with humanity in order to create a new leadership here. Your allies do not seek to interfere in human affairs. They do not seek to manipulate human destiny. They watch from afar and they send emissaries such as ourselves, at great risk to us, to give counsel and encouragement and to clarify things when that becomes necessary. We, therefore, come in peace with a vital message. Now we must speak of the fourth area in which your visitors seek to establish themselves, and that is through interbreeding. They cannot live in your environment. They need your physical stamina. They need your natural affinity with the world. They need your reproductive abilities. They also want to bond with you because they understand that this creates allegiance. This, in a way, establishes their presence here because the offspring of such a program will have blood relations in the world and yet will have allegiance to the visitors. Perhaps this seems incredible, yet it is so very real. The visitors are not here to take your reproductive abilities away from you. They are here to establish themselves. They want humanity to believe in them and to serve them. They want humanity to work for them. They will promise anything, offer anything and do anything to achieve this goal. Yet though their persuasion is great, their numbers are small. But their influence is growing and the program of interbreeding, which has been underway for several generations, will eventually be effective. There will be human beings of greater intelligence but who do not represent the human family. Such things are possible and have occurred countless times in the greater community. You have only to look at your own history to see the impact of cultures and races upon one another and to see how dominating and how influential these interactions can be. Thus, we bring with us important news, serious news. But you must take heart, for this is not a time for ambivalence. This is not a time to seek escape. This is not a time to concern yourself with your own happiness. This is a time to contribute to the world, to strengthen the human family and to call forth those natural abilities that exist in people, the ability to see, to know and to act in harmony with one another. These abilities can offset the influence that is being cast upon humanity at this time, but these abilities must grow and be shared. It is of the utmost importance. This is our counsel. It comes with good intentions. Be glad that you have allies in the greater community, for allies you will need. You are entering a greater universe, filled with forces and influences that you have not yet learned how to counteract. You are entering a greater panorama of life. And you must prepare for this. Our words are but part of the preparation. A preparation is being sent into the world now. It does not come from us. It comes from the Creator of all life. It comes at just the right time. For this is the time for humanity to become strong and wise. You have the ability to do this. And the events and circumstances of your life create a great need for this.